No.
bathroom
Okay.
downstairs, yeah.
Whoops, we have, oh, no, that's Doug. Okay. Communication. In the packet, there were two things I'll just mention again, and that is the message from Colleen Medeiros from Cape Cod Commission, and there were a number of reports in her, I guess it's newsletter, which was very helpful. And then there was also this video, really, of safe routes to school. It's about 88 pages, but there's a lot in there about e-bikes. And so if you haven't had a chance to look at it, I just recommend that you take a look at it. I found it to be quite useful. But I'm not aware of any other communication.
No, I'm not either.
No? Okay. All right, so then the VHB, Josh is going to basically talk about the Main Street Field Survey results, the initial results. But of course, we do have two sheets that, different versions, Concept 1 and Concept 2 of Main Street. And so, is Josh on there?
Yes, I see him on there. He'll be rejoining as a panelist.
Okay, let's see. Oh, here he comes. And here's George. Okay. Josh, are you on?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. So, do you want to give us a little bit of an orientation of these two concepts for Main Street that you have provided?
Yeah. Do you guys? I can share my screen and give you guys a little kind of rundown of where we are in Main Street, a little reminder and results of the field survey. Give me 1 second. You guys, let me know when you can see that.
Yeah, we can see it now.
All right. So, just a little reminder, the project limits along Main Street that we were looking at is basically from Academy Place just to the east of Route 28, following along Main Street until the intersection of Beach Road and Barley Neck Road. So this concept, this project did not include anything onto Beach Road or onto Barley Neck. It ends up being about 6,600 feet or 1.25 miles. So a little bit of project status / history, since this has honestly been going on for a little bit now. So we were originally hired back in 2021 to look at Main Street in this area. In 2022, we basically held as the town survey project was ongoing and they were getting survey throughout the entire area for us to use. So in 2022, we were basically waiting and staying pat. 2023, we provided the 3 typical sections to the town. The preference at that time was to go with alternative 1, and we'll get to a little bit more information on these alternatives in a few minutes, but alternative 1 was the on-road bike lanes with the sidewalk on the north side of the roadway. And then in 2024, we kind of revisited this with you all on the committee, and we progressed all our alternatives analysis to include both alternative 1 and alternative 3, or sorry, alternative 1 and alternative 2, which was alternative 2 is the sidewalk on the north side with sidewalk / path on the south. And we also decided at that time to eliminate alternative 3, which was on-road buffered bike lanes. And then last January, we had submitted the alternatives analysis to the town. Later in December of 2025, the town hired VHB to go out, our survey department to go out and reestablish the right-of-way along Main Street, and then reanalyze the impacts based on that new reestablished right-of-way. So, just a reminder what the existing roadway / layout looks for, and there is some variability along the corridor. It's not a perfect shot the entire way, but for the most part, it's two 11-foot lanes. There's 3-foot shoulders, and like I said, some areas are smaller, some areas are bigger than that shoulders. And there's a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side of the roadway, but that's not continuous throughout the project study area. It's continuous for the western portion of the project, but becomes intermittent as you get towards the east, towards Beach Road. And then there's also a large amount of utility poles lining that north side of the road continuously throughout this mile plus. And then the big update was establishing the 60-foot wide town layout along the roadway. And that layout was taken in 1988, and it is a consistent 60 feet throughout this entire stretch. So like I said, we had 3 alternatives, alternative 1, alternative 2, and then we decided to eliminate alternative 3 back in 2024. Here's just a quick, obviously, rendering snapshot of alternative 1, which has the on-road bike lanes, 32 feet of proposed pavement, and then a 5-foot sidewalk on the north side, where there is one in patches today. And then alternative 2, which would be to kind of condense that pavement down to 26 feet. So you're looking at 2 11-foot lanes, 2-foot shoulders on each side, keeping that 5-foot sidewalk on the north side, but then having a path / sidewalk on the south side. What I show on the screen here is kind of the preferred minimum when you're talking about Mass DOT standards or design standards of that 5-foot buffer between the roadway and the path, and then a 10-foot minimum path. What I have showed previously as well, and what we continue to show on these graphics, is we also have a minimum path, which has a reduced 3-foot buffer and an 8-foot lane or an 8-foot path. And this would be used in constrained areas where we wouldn't be able to fit that full 15. So any of the impacts that we counted for as part of the original alternatives analysis for right-of-way takings, for tree impacts, for any of the impacts was based on that kind of minimized section where we would use that rather than impact people's properties or trees where we could. And then, like I said, so in December, we got hired. Our survey crews found some time throughout the winter when there wasn't 5 feet of snow on the ground to go out there and find the existing bounds and establish those bounds so that they could then re-establish the existing town layout in CAD for us to use. And I think for those of you who have been on this committee for this voyage, I've said over and over again that the GIS layout lines, sometimes they're spot on, sometimes they can be significantly off one direction or another. So it's hard to kind of give great direction off GIS layout lines. So I think this was a great step for us to establish this right away and make some confident decisions based off of it. So when I was saying that, here's an example of it. So this purple, magenta, and I apologize if it's a little light on the screen for you guys, but this purple magenta line here is what we had done our first analysis off of, which is the GIS layout lines that come in from the downloads from the town information. And then the red here is the actual town layout line that we established with our right-of-way crew. So you can see there's a pretty significant difference there when you're talking about what we looked at and analyzed. That's at least a 5-foot, 6-foot, upwards of probably 10 feet gap in some areas of what you get off of GIS versus what the town actually owns. Again, on the bond, you can see it's kind of spot on through here, but when you get into this curve heading away east of Tonsit, again, there's a pretty sizable gap there of what GIS would say versus what the town actually owns. Does that make sense to you guys looking at that quickly?
Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so when we had done our analysis and report and submitted it in January 2025, this was the impact table that we had as part of that report. So as far as permanent easements, we had about 2,300 square feet as part of alternative one, and we had about 8,500 square feet as part of alternative two, which was the the path on the south side. And what I will say is the rest of this table is still accurate. There's still utility pole relocations that have to happen with both alternatives. There's still trees that are impacted as part of both alternatives. There's still walls that are impacted of both alternatives. These estimates, we would need to, obviously, but generally speaking, these are a year and a half old at this point almost, so they're in a ballpark. What we found going through with the actual right of way is in both alternatives, the only impact we were seeing to permanent right of way was in one location, and that was actually at the town, the cemetery that's located right across from town hall there, where you guys all are. And that was actually, I have a picture of it in the bottom left here. We had swung the sidewalk out to show it kind of up against the cemetery, the concrete wall here, to avoid this slope. So we had showed it kind of running up on top of this hill, and that's where this blue kind of right-of-way impact is coming from. But this is something, you know, if we choose to go into design on this, we could look at this area to kind of go through a couple alternatives of where to put this sidewalk to even avoid any of these permanent impacts. So based on the right-of-way for both, or the surveyed right-of-way for both alternative one and alternative two, we think we could fit either option in the town right-of-way without permanent takings. There is obviously some caveats with that. If there's any drainage that would need to happen on private property, we would need a easement for that. If there's any retaining walls that are unexpected that we would need, and we might need a retaining wall easement, but we could fit the cross section within the town right away for either option. So basically eliminating any permanent easements or takings. The one thing, again, I kind of hinted at this before as well, was just because the town owns things doesn't mean there's not going to be some, you know, impacts. I kind of brought the right of way into an aerial imagery here. So these bold red lines where the right of way is, and this is down towards Beach Road. Actually, Beach Road is just off the screen here to the right. And you can see, even though the town does own between the red lines here, there is some, you know, existing features out there, whether it be trees or some brick sidewalks that intermittently appear. You know, there's the outdoor seating area up here, some parking lots. So there is still some impacts out there. It's just within the town right away. And that's honestly really the update of kind of where we stand with the right away updates. So I guess I'll take a breath and see if you guys have questions for me.
Any questions? Now, wait a minute. Telephone poles? I'm sorry. Josh?
What was that?
Telephone pole impacts?
Yep. So those are unchanged. We would still be, alternative one, we would still be expecting about 5 relocations. Alternative two, we would still be expecting about 11. So each have impacts to utility poles out there.
Okay.
Not so much a question as much as a comment. Thanks for this update, Josh. I think just one thing I think that we should be thinking about in terms of what we might want to push forward as a recommendation is what we're connecting to and from. So we have this stretch, right, that we know we're bookended by Beach Road on one end and downtown on the other end. So just thinking about whatever we do in this section, I think we want to think about continuity. And, you know, we've had lots of discussions about Beach Road, and, you know, I think having a separated, you know, shared use path would be nice. I just don't know that it gets us where we want to be. I mean, I think one of the things that we all kind of heard as part of the Beach Road discussion is minimize impacts. You know, minimize impacts as much as we can. And it's very similar to other discussions other towns have about sidewalks when they build them. So I think continuing to minimize our impacts, thereby minimizing our cost, regardless of how much we own. The good news is, it looks like we own a pretty good section of real estate through here. So getting our sidewalk and even if just a 5-foot shared use path or shoulder would really make a meaningful difference, I think, for this section of town. Even just having our, I think we were concerned about the back of our existing sidewalk and whether we had room to expand it or whatnot. It looks like we do. So I think that, redoing the sidewalk where it exists on the north side of the road isn't all that hard. It's gonna be costly, yeah, but it's really kind of a footprint job. We're working within the same footprint that we were before, maybe expanding it a little bit. So just one thing I think that the committee should think about in terms of connectivity on both ends, in terms of what we're gonna have and how would that work?
One small update that kind of goes along with what Griffin said. We did speak with VHB about proceeding with looking at a third alternative for Beach Road with as continuous of a single sidewalk on one side of the road. So that might, when we see a concept for that, help us determine what we're looking at here as well.
I mean, I just think that realistically, we all know that we're not going to get anything through in this town with a 10-foot bike path on one side and a 5-foot sidewalk on the other. We're going to be very happy to have a 5-foot sidewalk on one side for safety for our pedestrians. And I think my question would be, he is showing us the layout of 2 more aggressive plans. If we get to the point that we want to proceed to engineering, how would we approach it? Would we approach it that we want to engineer for something more than we are going to plan to construct? Because if what we're going to plan to construct is just a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk on the north side, and yet we don't want to do something that would interfere with somewhere down the future, 10 years from now, someone, or 20, maybe 50 years from now, that someone would want to put in something on the north side. We don't want to have created something that makes that more difficult. Or are we not, since the town has 60 feet, do we not even have to worry about that? Do we at this point just say, okay, what we really think the town has an appetite for at this point is a sidewalk on one side, and we just engineer that, and then the town, knowing that the town has plenty of space, we just don't worry about it? Calvin, what do you think?
I think we would choose a alternative before proceeding with engineering.
Oh, yeah.
If we want to keep it in mind to hug one side of the right of way for future expansion, then it's something we could discuss. That would have different impacts later on down the road, like Josh was saying with drainage and everything. So, the space might not be there, but it would probably be, just as invasive as a project again. It wouldn't simply be just adding that in the future. So,
Yeah.
if you look at what the cost benefit of something like that would be, and if the town thinks they'll ever have the appetite for it, I don't think it would be anytime soon that we'd be looking at, redesigning this if we were to implement sidewalks down this corridor.
And I was very surprised by the number of telephone poles affected. It didn't seem like it was that many. What was the figure?
5 or 11.
5 on concept 1 and 11 on concept 2, I think it was. Or all
That's-
concept 1.
Yeah.
I mean, that surprises me. That seems very low.
That's good.
That is.
Doesn't mean the utility companies are gonna make it easier for us, I can tell you that.
It's a cost driver.
George?
Peter, my opinion is, there's not an enormous amount of development potential down this road in either direction in the long term. So what we decide to do here is probably here for a good generation or more. And given that the town has not built many meaningful sidewalks in a 20-year period, I would think this would be a good step forward to just do a sidewalk on one side of the street, improve it so people can walk on it. They can go to East Orleans from downtown. This is one of those, we actually have two destinations that make some sense, that there's a lot of people who live tributary to Main Street and could use that road. I think a reasonable project at the smallest cost we can find is probably the best way to go here.
Yeah.
I would hope that, Josh, I don't know if you've thought about this, that we keep the center line of the street essentially the same. Is that kind of the idea here?
Well, I was just gonna ask if we were to move the center line of the road, could we avoid all utility impacts?
And there's a cost balance, right?
Yeah, there's a cost balance to that. I think, so like with concept one, which is just the sidewalk, yeah, like you can kind of see the gray here. That was where the center line is. So we're basically just splitting the center line there. So we would be keeping that center line more or less
That's the way to go, isn't it?
where it was. We could look, especially if we're not doing the 5-foot shoulders along here, if it makes sense to kind of balance it one way or another to avoid additional impacts. But yeah, the intent was to keep that center line more or less where it was. And I will say, like, I'm just kind of scrolling through some of these right now, listening to you guys, but like, even with some of like getting the sidewalk in with the utility poles. So like here is a situation where, dear guys, this is right in front of the playhouse, basically. So that's what this image looks like with like that utility pole that's basically almost in the roadway now. So in a situation like this, it might make sense for us to scooch this roadway over a little bit so we could get this utility pole fully out of the roadway. So there are areas like that we would kind of look at, like making sure this is ADA compliant and we could get a pedestrian through here with at least 36 inches for that. And again, coming up here, this is going to be a situation where I think you guys mentioned this at a meeting, like, yeah, the town owns this and there is a sidewalk there now, but with these hedges growing and the utility poles on either side of it, it's not really a comfortable or usable sidewalk. So we'll have to kind of look at engineering in situations like this of what's the best way to get a usable path for people along this roadway.
Josh, we're not going to be compromising shoulders at all with this? Do you think we could enhance the shoulders for cyclists, since I think we're going to have cyclists off the sidewalk, right? We're not going to have a multi-use path. That's what we're heading for. So
Yeah,
we want to try to find a way to enhance the shoulder width as well.
Yeah, so I mean, like what we have sketched out right now, and what all these impacts numbers are based off of, are providing that 5-foot sidewalk. So, or sorry,
5-foot shoulder, you mean?
5-foot shoulder.
5-foot shoulder and bike lane on each side. So, if that's the direction we kind of wanted to go, we've already kind of accounted for it, I would say.
I think just to speak to both what Bob said and also keeping it, cost conscious, I think almost maybe doing a little bit of a sensitivity analysis to see, yeah, a 5-foot shoulder is great, but a 3-foot shoulder is also great too, where we only have 2 feet now, or 18 inches now. So I think, even looking at a 3-foot or 4-foot could provide meaningful improvement over what we have today and might mean less impacts. So and maybe it's 3. I don't know what that number is, but it might, as you look down the corridor, going a 3-foot shoulder is still pretty decent. And you could kind of do a little bit of a striping exercise too that also helps with speeds and things like that. So I think we're kind of looking at the whole suite of opportunities that we have to, one, to calm traffic, two, to provide some avenue for bicyclists. And those will be the more experienced bicyclists because kids will be riding on the sidewalk. It's very similar to like Millstone Road. But I think being able to look at that and say, okay, maybe the cost difference between a 2-foot shoulder and a 4-foot shoulder could be pretty significant, to the point where it might be like, well, this might, it's not perfect, but it's certainly an improvement over what we have today. And I'm not sold on one dimension or another. I just think that that's probably a prudent way to look at it, and in an effort to report back to the taxpayers that we tried to reduce the cost as much as possible. And that's not necessarily having them run all the different scenarios. I think they could run through it and start to identify some of that, such that, you know, it's a lot easier to choke it down than it is to add back in. So if we understand the cost for a certain size and we bring it down, we know we're gonna bring the cost down.
Yeah.
You know, and that brings into things, brings like drainage and those types of things into consideration as well.
Yeah. Peter, I have another question.
Stephanie.
On the diagrams that you showed, the two things that I'd like you to do a little bit more detail, you mentioned it, and I don't think I was quite following what you were saying, and that is Cemetery Ridge and what's in front of the Performing Arts, the Academy of Performing Arts. I mean, right now, the Academy of Performing Arts is such a cultural icon in Orleans, and they use that on-street parking a lot. And that's very important to the town to make sure that we maintain that. And so if anything that we're looking at where maybe what Griffin was talking about was, you know, pushing the center line or whatever it is we would have to do to make sure that through that Academy of Performing Arts section, we do maintain what they have, if not improve it. And then the other thing is, Josh, how are you talking about addressing a sidewalk in front of the cemetery? Were you going to be moving it down so that it was right on the current roadway level, or were you going to be leaving it at the top of the ridge, right where the wall is? I don't understand what our possibilities there are.
Yeah, I mean, I think basically the two options are putting it up high to get on top of that slope and then regrading the slope between the sidewalk and the roadway. Or we would put it low, kind of right on, keep it just on the edge of the roadway there. And then see if we either needed a secondary wall or maybe even like a small curb at the back of that sidewalk to hold up that slope, or if we could regrade just up to that existing wall in a way that made sense. So those are really the two options: kind of put it at the top where we show it now, or just keep it continuous along the side of the road. And again, like kind of Griffin was getting at there, these are all kind of areas we could take a look at with, you know, while we're going through the engineering of, does it make sense through this area to put a different curve on this road to bring it down to the south a little bit more to get some more space up here? Or like you're talking about at Academy Place, a little bit to the west here, does it make sense to bring the roadway down the south a little bit more, kind of where the existing line is now, to make sure that we're keeping the parking there? So there's definitely areas, you know, when we get into it, where we know there's constraints that we could play with the road geometry one way or another and get the sidewalk or go with a reduced shoulder there or something like that to accommodate these areas.
I think looking at those constrained areas would make a lot of sense, because then that would dictate what we might be able to do outside of those constrained areas. Because I think we want to try and keep it consistent through there as much as we can, and that might define what our shoulder should be potentially. Because we'll have pitchforks at our doorstep if we take the parking away from the Academy Place.
Oh, yeah.
You know, honestly, that place is banged out all the time.
It is.
It's such an icon to our community that we need to try and maintain as much parking in front of there as we can.
Right.
Josh, the section by the cemetery, you had a picture of it. If we were to put the sidewalk on the higher end of it and you regrade it, I'm just wondering if people might, kid could fall down and get into the road? Is that, creating a hazard? It's nice to be away from the road, but then if they fall,
Yeah, we'd look at that and like if this slope was too steep, we could put like a handrail basically that has like a high and low bar on it to kind of prevent that situation. Or, you could do some plantings along here, something like that to try to avoid, yes, that fall hazard.
Josh, is there any possibility on the south side, on the opposite side, to do a crosswalk there? Because I think it's a little bit easier to develop on the south side right there. And there's some green space.
There is,
You can't see it in that picture, but
yeah. So there's a pretty straight shot. Like we could look at potential areas for crossings. Like I said, as we get into a design. The only not great thing about putting it on the south side here is that there's River Road and School Road both have pretty significant crossings for a pedestrian. So, and neither kind of force cars to decelerate to take, this right turn onto River Road, or even this right turn off of School Road, even though there is a stop line there. So cars can take that at speed. So these crossings aren't ideal for a sidewalk here, but we could look at potential opportunities for, crossing the road where it made sense and going on the other side.
One of the things that we've discussed over time has always been the reworking of the whole, three different intersections, or maybe even four, that are on Main Street. One would be down at the Barling Neck Beach Road intersection, one being right as River Road comes through. Even Meeting House to me is kind of wonky, and then Tonset. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to start increasing the cost of a sidewalk project so that's like, okay, and now we're going to also include the reworking of these four different intersections, and that ups our price by so much that now people are looking at the sidewalk as being the creator of those costs, when in fact it's not. So, Calvin, what would your thought be about addressing the sidewalk as just the sidewalk and then addressing those intersections later on? Or do you feel from the DPW's point of view that we should be more comprehensive and take some of that in?
I think you'd want to get the alignment of the intersection at the same time. So you're not redoing the sidewalks if you redo the intersection.
So you think we should be bringing those in any, and we know when you're doing an engineering plan, I understand that, but in any engineering plan that we do decide upon, you think we should include the remaking of those intersections?
I don't think so. If you're like, especially Onset and Maine there
Yep.
with this project, I think you're gonna need to make sure it aligns well, and you're gonna have to do a study with the timing of the light and the restriping. It's all gonna have to be part of this project, in my opinion.
Okay. And that, but none of that is being taken into consideration with what Josh is showing, right? What he's showing is just sidewalk costs and whatever, right? I mean, we see the space we've got, but we haven't addressed what any of those costs would be, or are they kind of included in that?
I defer to Josh if he had any
I
costs.
think we did have some
It's in
costs
the
for,
limits of work.
yeah, I think we did have some costs for some assumed intersection upgrades. I don't think we assumed like major reconstruction, but of shifting curb lines and updating timings or equipment potentially. I think those were in those costs.
Okay.
Josh, on the cemetery question, it seems to me that if we stay with the profile of the sidewalk where it is now at the top, doesn't that make it really difficult if you've got people who have a wheelchair or anything like that? So, would that argue for going down at your lower option on that?
We just kind of showed this horizontally for now. Like this would all have to be ADA compliant and less than 4.5% everywhere for wheelchairs for that purpose. So yes, we would have to consider that. And like I said, it might just make sense. This was just an idea that we had come across in 2021 or 2022 or sometime few years ago to kind of throw this up there, and we haven't really updated or changed it since. So once we had gotten to actual design, we would look at the best place for this sidewalk.
Okay. And please remind me, who pays for relocating the utility poles? Is that the town? Yeah. Pardon me?
It's never going to be Verizon.
Challenging
Yeah.
Yeah,
process.
okay.
I think even the way that it's shown here might not quite work for grade. I mean, that might be a long grade arm to make that work, because it's pretty steep coming up that slope.
it
So
is.
I think that would have to be something that would have to be analyzed. I think a lot of the questions that we're asking are kind of design-pointed questions
they are.
that
Yeah, we're
that
beyond.
would be part of the process.
Yeah.
But we're anxious, so
Yeah.
I know what we're getting at.
Yeah, I have one other question too about something that I keep bringing up because it's coming up fast, and that is we've got Eldridge Parkway Recreation Area that is going to be a huge draw. And plus, the elementary school is right there, the middle school is right there. And in all of this, we're addressing Main Street, and we're not addressing Tonsett Road Extension. And Tonsett Road Extension is going to be the natural path for walkers, for kids, kids on bikes. And I wonder what everybody would think about adding Tonsett Road Extension into this project. Is that foolish, or in that we're creating such an increase that we're pricing ourselves right out of any consideration for the town? Or, Chief, would you have an idea on that in terms of safety for children and pedestrians in that area?
Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. You put sidewalks into Tonsett Extension, it's gonna, reduce the risk of any sort of collisions or just general conflict. So, yeah, it absolutely, whether or not we can fit it into this project, this town is facing a lot of big money tickets.
It is.
Yeah, so, I think some spoke about this earlier. I think it's about being reasonable, and, what can the town really digest at this point?
Right.
So, but and the thing is, you're absolutely right. It
Yeah.
makes sense to do that.
Yes.
Because, that is, it's access to that area of town, Eldridge Parkway. You forgot the police department, by the way, when you were talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
People like to avoid this. Yeah, but it does make sense. But what, is the town gonna have the appetite, So that's what you,
I think you make a good point there. I think as soon as we touch 28, we're into Mass DOT land, too. So I think any intersection improvements is probably going to be $1 million worth of signal improvements before we even get to talking about a sidewalk. There's no crosswalk that other direction. I think it makes a ton of sense to make that connection.
Yeah,
But we might be better off just pushing them down to Main Street for the time being.
for the time being, okay.
While we continue to gain momentum on our
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Yeah, I think at one time, when Tom Daly was still here, he had approached Mass DOT about improving the light right there by the police department on Route 28, and their reaction was, I think wanting a pedestrian light there was what he was asking for. And their reaction was, you don't even have a sidewalk on Tonsett Road. Why would we give you a pedestrian light there? So, it's going to be, do we put in the sidewalk first and then go to Mass DOT? Or which comes first?
I think personally, if we can show that we can be successful as a community building a sidewalk, maybe it won't be everything that we need. Then there's other opportunities, there's grant opportunities, safe routes to school,
Right.
things like
There are
that. So
big
if we
ones.
can get some momentum by building hopefully somewhat affordable section of sidewalk. We are up against a lot of other demands for costs. So if we can start small and then hopefully grab that momentum to get some grants and things like that, then continue to add on to the next, because just because we stop at a certain location doesn't mean we're done forever. I think it
Okay.
just needs to be a kind of a phased approach. I want to do it all too. I just worry
Yeah,
about.
yeah, that we really should just concentrate on Main Street at this
That makes a
point.
lot of sense, because we were talking, let's take baby steps.
Okay,
Let's have a successful project.
right,
Let our citizens see a successful project, and then maybe they're gonna wanna take it even
Right.
further. Then we can just bite off a little bit more.
okay.
One thing
Alice,
just to
did you
mention,
have something you wanted to say? Excuse me.
When you're ready, Peter.
Go to the
yes, I'd like-
podium, please.
Sure.
one thing just to mention while she gets up there, is in Brewster, there was a lot of angst about the sidewalk on Millstone Road. We now have people calling saying, when are we getting more sidewalks? I
Yeah.
mean, literally, it's
Yeah.
happening. It took time, but like, we showed that we could do it. We showed that we could do it right in a way that wasn't gonna negatively impact the neighbors along the way. And it's been successful. I'm optimistic, but I think this can do the same thing as well.
Sure.
Alice?
Thanks, Peter. I would really like to encourage you to rethink the, whatever you're allowing for shoulder for the, for bicyclists. I know that there aren't as many people on the committee that are looking to that as being critical, but I will remind you that over the course of the last 5 or 6 years, as we've talked about this, we've heard from a lot of folks that have said they would prefer to be able to bicycle into town. We have a town that's talking about doing a net zero fire and rescue station. We have a really active committee that's looking at ways to start minimizing our use of fossil fuels, and I think it's incredibly short-sighted to just be thinking that you're building a sidewalk for pedestrians. So I would encourage you, I really, give you kudos for going the extra 9 yards with Josh to do the surveying, because we're looking now, 60 feet is more than twice what we're actually looking at now when we look at that paved, right-of-way. So there's a lot of room to do some good work, and I can't imagine, increasing a little area for a reasonable, if you want to call it a shoulder rather than a multimodal pathway, whatever, but a safe area that people on bicycles can go. We had folks that came and talked to us that said they live on Beach Road and Main Street and put their bikes in their cars and drive to the bike trail, so there were a number. So please give that some thought. And the one other thing in regards to sidewalks, I hear you on the Millstone, because as I'm watching the sidewalk going in Harwichport, people are pretty excited over that. And that's going to make a huge difference in being able to get people from Saquatucket Harbor up to town for, patronizing the shops and whatever. I think it's going to be a real boon for that. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Beth?
Just a few comments, because I think you guys have really found the right path on this path project. But I do want to sort of think about the idea of not having equal shoulders, because on the north side, the people who are on bikes using that are going to have to go with a granite curb on one side, and the bikers on the other side are not going to have that. So the margin for error might be nice to have more of that. But also in that stretch in front of the academy, right in front of the academy, the people are parking on the shoulder next to the granite curb. But as soon as you leave that driveway into the academy and go toward the cemetery, the cars are parking over the sidewalk up against the hedge. And so that space is going to really be needed. You're going to need to find significantly more space if you want to protect the parking for the academy and allow for the pedestrian and biking paths to be there. And then on the telephone poles, I'll ask this question just because I'm curious, but it'll be asked by plenty of other people too. Relocating a pole versus undergrounding the lines, and it would be good to at least have the ability to say this X costs this and Y costs that. And and in between that, you would have maybe the option of just running it underground between a couple of poles and solving, some problems there. You don't have to have the whole run. But the number I heard for relocating these poles was so outrageous that it made me wonder what the incremental cost increase would be to go underground. And then just, you were talking about the 4 intersections that run into Main Street. The one right here at School Road and River Road for bikers and pedestrians is by far the most dangerous. And if you go up and down Main Street, walkers and bikers have a really wide expanse to get across, and cars are oriented so to not see them. I mean, so if you're turning right out of River Road here, people older than me are not even turning their heads, to get out there. And I think part of the reason is they've got to turn their head a lot more when it's an angled exit like that. So I think at least discussing changing that intersection, and then one of the problems is the Civil War memorial that's there is right in the way too. But I think in the long run, that's the most dangerous of the intersections for bikers and walkers.
Is the Civil War soldier ever going to get some
No,
sort
no,
of
not the
spinal
soldier.
treatment?
Not the soldier, he's
Not the
down
soldier,
further down
he's
the
down
road,
there.
but
Yeah.
out here is a big boulder with a.
No.
And that's,
I was asking about his spine.
yes, no, I think that's in
Got some
the
CPC
works.
money, yes.
Really?
Yes, yeah.
Good for
He
him.
got some CPC money this year.
But anyways,
He will
other than
be
that,
restored.
really, I really applaud the direction that you've ended up with this. I think it's the right way to go.
Thank you.
So I guess my next question would be, we all seem to be pretty much in agreement that we're looking at a sidewalk on the north side. What is everyone's thought about at what point do we have some town a presentation to the town on what Josh just presented to us and what our thoughts are? Are we way too early for that? I mean, my thought was, we'd like to maybe have a discussion from now over the next couple of months and hopefully ask for the engineering dollars at the November town meeting, although I didn't listen to the select board meeting. Did the fire station get put off until November?
It's going to be in May.
Oh, good. So if we think we might be able to ask for some engineering funds in November, are we, should we be talking about when would we like to have Josh make this presentation or have one of us do it at a community meeting? Or does everyone feel it's necessary or not at this point? Griffin, I know you're always high on community meetings. What's your thought?
I think once we have a conceptual design, or not a conceptual, an alternative narrowed down is when we need to start.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if we want to just look at some of the pinch points here to come up with a cross-section that we can all agree upon. So
Okay.
I wonder if, if we looked at, Academy Place, at the cross-section near the cemetery, and then maybe one more near the more commercial area. I just feel like that would give us a pretty good cross-section of the three, and then see what we can fit in each one of those, and then come up with what our recommended solution's gonna be. Because I think, like I said, continuity is gonna be really important. And if we can't do something at one of these pinch points, like, I don't know that we wanna, I think it would behoove us to sort of look that through a little bit, so.
Okay,
As much as it's asking Josh to do a little more work, but I think that that would really help us look at those. And if you guys have other ideas of locations, please chime in, as I might not be thinking of all of them.
Yeah, the encroaching hedge just comes to mind.
The he- yeah,
You know, you got
yeah.
100 yards of hedge
Yeah.
there to,
Yeah.
Sorry, George,
Yeah.
which one?
the encroaching hedge along Main.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think
one right by the
I think
academy.
if we've got 4 or so locations, they can probably look at that relatively quickly, and then we can start to kind of connect the dots in between. Just I was just looking quickly to a job I had done years ago. I buried about 1,300 linear feet of utility poles, and it was $5 million. And this was,
Quarter mile.
God, 15 years ago.
Oh,
So, but we can dig that up and sort of get an idea of what it would be. It's very cost prohibitive.
Yeah, we had a Main Street, the little section of Main Street from 6A to 28, and the number was like $3.5 million. It was like the equivalent of putting in new sewer almost.
Right. So it would be probably as much as the sidewalk would be, but we need to be able to just answer that question, so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. Josh, I'm sorry, Griffin, you did move poles for over on Millstone, right? What was the cost?
We're still moving.
Oh, what is the cost?
We
per
moved
pole?
36 poles. It was $400,000 for Verizon. It was, I want to say 360 for Eversource and about 150 for Xfinity.
Well, they each got that
per
much?
pole.
No, not per pole, total. 400, Verizon was paid $400,000 to move 35 poles.
And then,
They didn't, it's been a saga. So it was about 400 and about 360, so it was about $1 million to
For?
move 35 poles.
35 poles, so it's about 300,000 per pole?
It's hard to,
Totally depends.
it's, you know,
Whatever is on the pole?
depends what's on the pole, the other job I was referring to had more stuff on those poles. So that was, some communities hang a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't
Just,
usually
yeah,
have,
just generally to that, it's about $20,000 per pole. And like Griff said, that depends on how, these are pretty full poles on Main Street, but like generally rough numbers, we use like $20,000 a pole, which is about what Griff is getting there. So
thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
it's not cheap.
And it's hard to get their attention. We're
Yeah.
still waiting for
Yes.
poles to be moved on Millstone Road.
Yeah. So what is our next step?
I mean, my thought, just a suggestion for discussion would be to potentially have Josh look at, 4 or so key cross-section locations to see what might fit, knowing what we would want to get out of it. I think certainly the academy would be one of those locations. There's no doubt about that. I think the cemetery is probably no doubt about that.
There's a question along with that. Calvin, do you know if there's ample budget to get that done?
Yeah.
We can look into it, we can make something work.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to minimize this initial exercise, just so we don't have to spend too much money to figure out, to give us enough to make a decision.
Yeah.
little commercial area needs to be,
I think that's, because those folks are gonna be interested, as they should be, and we want them to be. So I think
Yeah, I mean, they are
4 or 5
potential
locations, I think that's
supporters.
4 locations right there that seem to make a lot of sense.
So we're talking the academy, the cemetery,
Academy, cemetery,
commercial area. Are we talking river?
Probably want to look at the Townsend intersection.
I think you should look at the intersections too, like Meeting House, that's a big stretch too as well,
I think the Meeting House one could be actually the easiest one. 'Cause
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You could just do a divider
Narrow it,
island
yeah.
there. Like where they striped it out, that could be an island.
Okay.
But it's probably worth, I mean,
Just intersections in general, just to get an idea.
I think we could have Josh put a number together for us that would include that, and see where that shakes out.
So are we going to include river?
If we're doing intersections, then I would say let's include river and school.
But are we, no. Do you think we should include river intersections or not? Should we just look at those pinch points of academy, cemetery, and the commercial area?
I think you're kind of.
I mean, I think we're gonna have to look at those locations anyways, so if we package those together and we can fund those now, that would probably make some sense.
What do you think, Kelvin?
I think if we're looking at the cemetery area, then it's gonna affect those school
Yeah.
and river
Yeah,
intersections.
anyway.
It's really a decision of, is it on
Yeah.
the north side or is it on the south
Yeah,
side?
yeah,
I
so
think
that's
it's
one
Probably
area.
on the north side because of the implications we're gonna have by putting it on the south side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But that's just
yeah.
spitballing right now. Josh,
Go ahead.
Josh, any thoughts on that approach, concerns?
No, I would just, yeah, we just have to look at where we're at budget-wise to whoever asked that question, but, I think we could take a pointed look at some of these locations and a couple concepts at the intersections.
Yeah. Because then, to me, it's kind of like connecting the dots. So whatever our most constrained location is, like, that's maybe what we should be thinking about for continuity.
Before we have him go into it, though, do we want to identify a cross-section that we want him to analyze in those areas, or do we want?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. I mean, my thought would be, start with the alternate one, which was a little bit less impactful, and see, do a little bit of a sensitivity analysis on what, and I don't want to make the shoulders smaller than we have to, but like, I think that's the one area that we have to give a little bit. So if we can do a little sensitivity analysis, looking at the shoulders for each one of these locations, then I think the concept, our preferred concept might be born out of this review. Because it might be, hey, you can only get 2-foot shoulders and, or whatever it might be, 3 foot, 4 foot, I'm not sure.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is the last phase of our conceptual planning. If we could ask our engineer to just do that work, come back to us, I think we're in a position where we're ready to go into design on the project. This is a right-of-way in which the town owns the entire right-of-way. I understand the sensitivities of taking property that people have invested upon, but I think we have the makings of a really good project that is needed for the town and will not be controversial as some of the others that we've brought forward recently.
Okay, so what we would be asking Josh for the next step is, first of all, to figure out what would be the cost of doing some of these pinch points. Now, but I think we need to give him some specificity on how expansive to do the list of pinch points. So he knows. Now, we have identified 4 of them in terms of, at a minimum. Now, are there others that we want to add to it? Or we ask them, all right, how much, if you do 4, how much is that? And then if you're doing a couple of those intersections, what would that add to it? And I don't know, this is something that then comes back to Calvin as to whether we have the budget for it.
I think if the committee wants to come up with, a preferred scope, then we can work with Josh on defining a budget for it.
Okay, so the preferred scope is 4 plus what?
I think we certainly would want to look at Tonsett, the Tonsett intersection. You know, Barley Net at the end, that, we might be better off looking at that in conjunction with the Beach Road.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, honestly, so, Tonsett's the only signalized intersection. We could limit it to that, depending on what recommendation they come up with. I mean, I think, just logically, I think the sidewalk's probably gonna end up on the north side. I don't think,
Yeah.
which would then take out any River Road School intersection discussion, which I think just might not be worth our time. So we could probably just limit it to the 4 pinch points and Tonsett intersection, if we wanted to.
So we're defining the 4 pinch points as academy, cemetery, the commercial area.
Yeah, and I think the commercial area where Josh pointed out the outdoor seating, it's not being used right now, but who knows, who might
Oh,
be
yeah.
in there in the future.
And,
Oh, I think it's,
Right.
yeah.
and what would our 4th be, Tonsett?
I think the hedge, and then Tonsett is the +1. That's the intersection.
Okay.
So it's 4 pinch points and 1 intersection.
I thought the hedge would be part of the academy.
It's not that close.
It's a
What is it? Oh, okay.
little ways down.
In my head, it was right next to it, so,
But the academy will
corrected.
include the wall, which
yeah,
effectively like a hedge there, so.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so then, Calvin, you and Josh will work to figure out what that would
What those,
entail cost-wise and whether you can absorb it somehow.
Well, yep.
Okay. I don't think we need to take a vote. Do we need to take a vote on that?
By consensus.
No. Okay. Okay, all right. Thank you. That was a very useful
Thank you, Josh.
discussion.
That was
Yeah,
great.
yeah. Okay, so very quickly, oh, we still have a little bit of time. Good. So we have the, let's see,
Mill Lane?
Mill, oh, yeah, Mill Lane Review. We had a draft letter that would go back to Mrs. Christie. And I don't know, Chief, have you had a chance to look at that?
Yeah, and I can, I think we talked a little bit about this last time. I did go down and take a look. There's no question at the intersection of Mill Lane and Beach Road, there's some sightline issues that need to be corrected.
Right.
That is private property, so we'd have to have them cooperate with us. In terms of no parking signs, I'm not a fan of a lot of signs in our community,
Right,
and we don't need them.
right.
If a vehicle is parked on Mill Lane and it is obstructing the traffic lane, or the travel lane, based on the width of those travel lanes, it's a violation of a regulation that we already have in town. Okay, so I think putting no parking signs on Mill, it's just gonna be unsightly and there's no need. So the enforcement teeth are already there.
Yeah.
So I would encourage the folks that are concerned about this, that if they see a violation, just to call the police department and we can take enforcement action at that.
Okay, so is this letter
Well,
achieve that? What?
at the last meeting, when we talked about it, in the minutes, I volunteered to write a letter, but I didn't know who, the initial request came in from, I think it was Sue Christie, and I think it came to Calvin.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not the one to respond to it, so I just came up with a letter that is probably incorrect by either police standards or DPW standards, but I had said I would do it, so that's the letter that I put in the minutes. But I don't know if one of you, who should respond to Sue Christie? Should that come from the chief, because he would be the one that would be enforcing no parking? Or should it come from Calvin, because he was the one that received the letter, or,
I think it should come from the chair of the committee.
okay.
Okay. Okay, and I'll take another look at it. There are a couple of places I think it needs a little working, but it's basically what you said is
Feel
the-
free to blame me.
I'll do that. My only question on this is, recall that we also had a letter basically refuting Sue Christie from Judson Marble. Do we CC him on the letter?
I wouldn't.
Huh?
I think it's a separate
Yeah,
conversation
Right.
with Judson and with Sue. Two different people, two different issues. CC him on it.
Yeah. He was more concerned with the fact that there's no sightlines on the road, just as. the
Yeah, that's
chief
true.
just said.
Yeah.
He wasn't concerned about,
No, I know he wasn't concerned about the no parking, that
Yeah.
he basically was saying we didn't really need that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just leave it going to Sue Christie, and we can deal with,
and it will come from you.
yeah, and we can include Judson later on when we're talking about the sightlines. to talk to about that.
Do we need to have any more discussions about that?
Well, I think on the sidelines, we were going to wait until all the brush and trees come in, so we have a much better understanding of how severe it is.
Oh, it's bad right
No,
now.
no, we're not questioning whether it's bad, but I
Yeah.
mean,
I don't think we need to, I just think we need to have communication with the property owner and see if they're willing to take action and trim that back. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to consist of. But we need to do something at that intersection.
Yeah, but I didn't know whether you wanted to do it now or whether you want to do it in like May when everything is even more
We
busy.
can do it at the same time while we're in communication with them. Just say this arose while we were discussing the intersection, and, I can reach out to them and remind them of their revocable license.
So why don't we leave it with Calvin and myself? I'll be happy to help him with that, and we can get on that, see if we can take care of that sightline issue.
Okay,
Great.
that makes sense. Thank you. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? It really isn't on the agenda, but we do need to do some cleanup as far as minutes and,
Yeah, I forgot to put it on here.
it's okay.
Yeah.
So there are two of them. There's the February 3rd community meeting on Beach Road. Have, you included these in the package?
Yeah, in the packet, I included two sets of minutes. One was from our March 3rd meeting, and one was for our March 2nd meeting, I think it was, and one was for the February 3rd community meeting. I had included it last month, but no one had had a chance to review it, so I included it again this time. So we need to have those voted on so that I can submit those to the clerk. George?
Mr. Chairman, would you put those on the next agenda for adoption when they're on the agenda, please?
Okay,
Oh, okay, I didn't put on the agenda.
Okay.
They're minutes,
Okay.
they're fine.
yeah, no, I know.
Okay, all right.
We're
My error,
pretty much
sorry.
up to date. I just don't want to misstep it. That's all.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
that's
I'll-
fine.
I'll
Okay,
remember.
we'll do that.
I'm sorry, I forgot to put it in there.
Okay, then other business, let's see. Joel or Bob, did you want to say something about 4-foot signage or anything like that, or the signage? Bob circulated, you circulated some photos on signs.
That was Joel, right?
Oh, I thought that was was it?
Oh, that was the signage we walked back in January, and I think Calvin, that's for,
There's two different things.
two different things, yeah. The signage was just pointing out where the signs are missing for overland that I circulated to Calvin. I think you got that right, Calvin,
Yeah, he's
where they should go.
presentation on it,
Yep.
the committee,
Oh,
and then you gave the updated signage for the 4-foot rule as well.
there's three different things. So
Yeah.
the overland is the signs pointing to the new access to the rail trail. And I think we had said DCR has signs, they're willing to do it. They're crazy busy, so, and it's, at some point, when they're breathing, we can circle back with them to see if they can put up some of the signs. And then that was the pictures that you sent
That's the
around.
pictures I sent around.
The presentation that Bob and I did, there were two things. There was options of what we can do, in that intersection on West Road. And then also, those are obviously high-ticket items. A smaller ticket item would be the motorists give 4 feet signs. And that was what I wanted to see if we could discuss. I didn't know, Chief or Calvin, if you or others had thoughts on those signs. Should we have them? And then the question is, where do we have them?
We do have share the road signs out now. I think they'd just be updated to the new format over time.
You have any idea how many there are around town?
A few on every road, though, for the most part.
I have too much time on my hands. I drove around to try to get a count. I counted 24, and I may have missed some as well. And just because we have 24 share the road, I'm not sure we want to swap out a 1-for-1. Chief, to your point about signs in general, we have tons of signs. If we swap out some, there's a newness factor. On Beach Road, Main Street and Beach Road, there's a ton of them just on that one stretch. and perhaps that's overkill, I don't know. And then over by Rock Harbor and Rock Harbor and Bridge, there's like none. And there's a lot of bikers on those roads there. So the question is there any objection to those signs in general? Yeah, that would be the question.
I don't think there are any objections to it, you know, and I'm gonna give you a huge compliment. I don't think anyone does it better than the community of Brewster in terms of the use of their signage. Brewster just does a wonderful job. I think we need to take a page out of their playbook and take a look at how you guys are coming up with specific locations, how many signs do you have?
So, yeah, no, I'm happy to answer. So for the 4-foot share the road signs, we worked with the police chief and town manager to identify the roads, because it was, I think, 2 years back or whatever, Mass DOT was giving away free signs. They were just like, tell us where you want them. So we kind of did an inventory of all of our roads. We chose not to put them on certain roads. We chose not to put them on many of our landing roads, because many of our landing roads are very narrow. So even though that's law, to ask somebody to get 4 feet over just seemed like it might cause more headaches than it was worth. So we put them on more of our connector roadways, our arterial roadways that see more traffic in terms of bikes and whatnot. And I think we put up like 31 of them, I think is what we ended up with in Brewster. So that's how we did it with the 4-foot share the road signs. But we approach signs in a very similar way. I mean, too much signage is pollution to some degree. I mean, people don't read them. It gets to a point where people don't read the signs. When you go to our transfer station in Brewster, there's a lot of signs, and it's kind of hard to follow what's going on sometimes, as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, that's sort of how we've approached it.
End up.
Okay.
Could I make a suggestion that we do have some cyclists on this committee? I'd be very interested in hearing your opinion. Apparently, you did a nice account of all the signs. I mean, the locations, what are the high priority areas that you feel that we should address? And I think that we could take it from that point.
Even just sharing that list might be a good start to see where we have them and where we might want to switch them out.
Should we put that on the agenda for our next meeting?
Sure.
That
Right.
you come up with recommendations?
Priority list.
Priority list? Okay.
And I think there's 2 different sizes too. We chose the smaller size just because many of our roads are pretty narrow to begin with and we didn't have a lot of space.
We also, on the agenda, had something about, it was brought over from the previous month.
I think Doug had something.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Peter, thank you, Peter. Yeah, not to put a fly, hi, everybody. Not to put a fly in the ointment, but the current edition of the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices does not have share the road signs in it. All right? So there's a lot of discussion. You can actually go online and find out about that. Who is the sign intended to? Are you talking to the bicyclist? Are you talking to the motorist? So a lot of those share the road signs are being replaced. I don't have the specific identification number, but they're not compliant under the current edition of the Manual and Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So I think we need to do a little bit of homework to find out what that new nomenclature is. In other words, it's basically, yellow is typically warning. And so those are on a yellow background, black on yellow, and yellow is warning. So what are we warning here? And that's kind of the beginning premise of this. So I would suggest before we make any decisions that we look into this and try to be compliant, I think, because the state is not going to put them up on their roads. You won't see them on state roads. But I think what I would suggest is we look into it in more detail to find out what the appropriate sign is and what we should be doing to be compliant with Mass DOT.
I reached out to Mass Bikes, the Massachusetts Bicycle Advocacy Group, and what they said, my understanding is, you're right, the share the road, the yellow share the roads are dated and should be replaced with the white motorists give 4 feet to pass.
Yep.
But you don't necessarily need to do a 1-for-1 swap, but ideally, those yellow share the road signs probably should come down.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so we can look forward next month to a priority list for, does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, let's see. I think that's.
Number 6, I don't think we discussed it.
Oh, right.
6 and 7.
That's right. Cape Cod Commission, on the interchange there.
That goes back to February, and at our February meeting, Griffin, you had said that you were going to, that you knew someone from the Cape Cod Commission.
Yep, I need to pick that back up, so if we could postpone that to
Okay,
next month, that'd be great.
all right.
Okay, and the Champions Institute, the deadline on that is over, correct? It was
Yeah,
March.
it's a moot point. It expired March 31st. so.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any other business? People? No. Okay. Any thoughts on adjournment?
Well, no, let's go into some agenda planning.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
we've discussed on and off, Calvin and Scott, safety regulations. Would that be something that would be good? And by that, we've had, Scott, you've told us the number one complaint that you get on town roads is speeding. Calvin, we know, has done a lot of research into what some of the new rules that the town can follow are, or implement. And so we were going to have the two of you talk to us, mostly in regard to Nauset Height roads and Beach Road. That's the area where we've gotten a lot of complaints and a lot of people wanting things to slow down. Is that a good discussion to have at our next meeting? Would you have time between now and the beginning of May for that, or do we want to put that off?
No, we're not going to have time. I know Calvin has reached out to Mass DOT on several occasions, and we're trying to make that connection. We need to make that connection with them.
Sure.
before
Okay.
we can come and speak intelligently on this. I think that there have been significant changes over the past 5 or 6 years in terms of options that local communities have. It's something that we have to roll up our sleeves on, and what is right for this community. And it's not just lowering a speed limit to its lowest
Right.
possible. I think we have to, there needs to be more of an in-depth conversation on this,
Okay.
what makes sense for us. So we are on it. We've communicated offline about, trying to make this connection. So we won't forget about you. We'll get it done as soon as we can.
Okay. Then the next item I had on there was Main Street, and hopefully we will be able to hear from Josh about what we discussed today at our next meeting. You think, Kelvin?
As far as those cross sections,
Yes.
it might be a quick turnaround for that, but I'll keep you updated.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Josh can get the scope put together between now and then and get started on it, but we might be a couple months before that. Hopefully we can get him into it quickly, but it's gonna take him a little time just to put a
Okay. So our goal is next month, but we'll wait, see.
I mean, it can be just even an interim report.
The Beach Road sidewalk option for VHB, we had discussed this last time, and you were going to talk to him about it. The whole thing with Beach Road is our contract with them is getting old, and we'd like to get that finished up. But at the same time, so much depends on what we do with Main Street, and the timing on Main Street is much more critical than what it is on Beach Road. So I don't know, did you have any opportunity to talk to them about that Beach Road option of just, remember we talked about,
Yeah, I had mentioned it earlier. We were gonna talk about a continuous sidewalk down Beach Road.
Yeah.
Hopefully on one side of the road, and see the impacts of that alternative. Hasn't had a chance to analyze that yet. so-
okay,
Yeah. I think-
all right. But you did mention to him, and maybe sometime in the summer timeframe.
Yeah, I
Use
think,
their actively working on it, so once it's done, I'll.
Okay, you'll know, all right.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we talked about at the last meeting was scheduling some time with you and Rich to provide us with an overview, like for long-term plans of what we have going on in the future, what your long-term thoughts are. We talked about doing that in May, June, July timeframe. I mean, with town meeting coming up in May is probably impossible for everybody. Everybody's keyed in on that. But maybe just keep that in mind for maybe June?
Yeah. Check with Rich and his schedule.
Okay,
But I don't know, mostly transportation-related projects is what we'll be presenting on.
okay. That was all I had. I don't know what anybody else has for other agenda items for next month.
Well, I think the principal work is moving this Main Street forward.
The other thing that I put in your packet, that I'm sure you were all so happy to see, was a photo. When I was at a No Kings protest over in Chatham last week, I had to walk from the Unitarian Church to the parking lot that is on Main Street in Chatham. And going down that road, I was struck by how tight the road was, and yet there was a sidewalk. And so I took a photo of it and then I measured it, and as it happened, to see how wide was that travel lane and how wide was the sidewalk. The travel lane is not even 10 feet wide. On one side, there's like no curbing, so you could pull over on one side, but on the side with the sidewalk, there's the granite curbing, and the sidewalk is 5 feet and 5.5 feet if you count the granite curb. And I'm sure they did these, 30, 40 years ago when there weren't the kind of regulations or advisement that there is today. But I was just very struck by, in a little space, how much they had. They had, the granite curb was right up against the lane. There was no shoulder there at all. And so I took a photo of it and sent it all to you.
Great. Okay. I thought you were sending us the sign. That was a separate photo.
No, no, that was just something else I sent you.
Oh.
I didn't send everybody else that. That was not in the,
Okay.
that was not in the meeting packet.
Oh. Did you have a?
Griffin, can I just ask you on your, you're going to get back to us on that CCRT Orleans, we're talking about the bridge?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember was there anything?
What might we be able to do with that bridge?
bridge.
And what could be feasible with Mass DOT? That's what I recall.
Right.
Because I think we were talking about options over the bridge, but weren't sure whether we could really pull it
Right.
off or not.
Right,
So, yeah, wouldn't fault with them on that.
okay.
I mean, ideally, we were looking at having multimodal on one side, crosses over the bridge where the existing sidewalk is 10 feet, narrowing down to 8 feet over the bridge.
Yep. Yeah, so just seeing what
Refresh my
might be
memory.
feasible to even approach DOT with over there.
So they might say, no, don't touch it, don't go there.
I'm just wondering if there's other precedent projects that are like that, where they've done something similar. There's been a lot of repurposing of different bridges over time for bike trails and whatnot, so just starting from something that's been done successfully and using that to start the conversation with DOT.
I have a question for George. George, I was trying to come up with, when we're going to be talking with Calvin and Rich about what are their upcoming projects, what do they see as things we're going to be looking to do in the future, I went to the new, the 2050 plan to see what is in there for transportation. And I was struck by, it was great amount of information and theory of what we want to do. Is a lot in there about how we want to move the town, but there is no specifics in terms of, we want to make the downtown a center for biking, and so now we are going to increase the number of, bike paths here or there, or we want to, there was nothing specific. It was very general. So where would we go to start developing that kind of a roadmap of what the town would like for its infrastructure, for sidewalks and bike paths and whatever?
So Stephanie, a comprehensive plan is the big picture.
Right.
Looking at the whole town, what are the things that this town needs to address over a 25-year period?
Yes.
And I think we've got a plan that's pretty good on that.
It is good.
But I think what you're talking about is the difference between the economic development chapter of the comprehensive plan and an economic development plan for the town, which was done in 2022, which is much more specific, and it is action, specific actions and a plan. And I think that's the kind of thing that we could fulfill later on after the comprehensive plan is done. We have a lot of specific plans for the community that are being used on a regular basis right now, like our housing plan, et cetera, et cetera. But I think, an overall plan of how we design and upgrade our network over time is absolutely embedded in the comprehensive plan to do that, but it's in a very general, a broad way.
Yes.
I think the words were to increase mobility, improve mobility for
Yes.
all user groups throughout the community, and that's the overarching goal for that chapter section.
And so where would we go to start developing a physical plan to meet those goals that are in the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, I think that becomes, with regard to transportation, I think that becomes a DPW function, which would, because they're the operation end of the overall town planning for mobility. So they do it, and, like, I love the start you had to get together and kind of understand DPW projects, where they're at, how far out they are. I think you'd be surprised how much extended planning has already gone on
Right.
for highway projects because they're so expensive and they take so long to come together. So, I expect that kind of question at the town meeting on the comprehensive plan. Where is the project I want to see? Where, da, da, da.
Yes,
And I
yeah.
think we have to be very clear about what it is and what it is not.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Okay, so in going the way we're going, which is to have Rich and Calvin speak to us, we're going in the right direction in trying to start developing that kind of a plan, having them develop it.
And I imagine you guys are working on a pavement management plan, right?
Yeah,
Which often the pavement management plan then informs a roadway prioritization plan.
Right. We're finishing up a recent pavement management plan right now. We actually had all our roads scanned by LiDAR. We're doing like an AI assessment of them, and they'll get prioritized that way, and then that will drive some projects on its own.
Sure.
So, this is the first pavement management done in 16.
15 years?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely gonna change what we had prioritized. So maybe it's a good time to start talking about it because we'll have, a base to start on.
Great. Okay, very good.
And I think some of the roadway prioritization plan has been born out of the sewer projects too, because that was getting done.
Opportunity.
Exactly. So it's not to say that they haven't been doing it, but,
Yeah,
Oh, the enormous amount of paving going on in this town.
Exactly,
Jeez.
exactly. So.
okay. Well, thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn, second?
We have to do a roll
We have
call?
to do roll call.
Yep.
Doug?
Doug Prentice.
George Meservey, aye.
Griffin Ryder, aye?
Calvin Sutton, aye.
Bob McDonald, aye.
Peter Algar, aye?
Stephanie Gaskell, aye?
Joel Porton, aye.
McDonald, aye.
Okay, thank you very